totally pathetic. And I screeched and yelled about it that night, and I said, look, I know our technology is better than this. The transmission from Mars, I grant you, it's a longer distance, but it's all coming back with error-correcting telemetry. So the pictures ought to be mwah.
You're correct, 100%.
I am.
100% correct.
Huh.
There's no reason we can't get better imaging from Mars than we get from right here on Earth.
Because of the lack of atmosphere.
That's correct.
Well, darn.
So either they deliberately set out not to get as good as imaging as they could,
Yes.
or they're messing with the signal.
Maybe they're getting some good pictures, and maybe the bad ones, like the photo company does sometimes, they send to us.
You both are very suspicious, aren't you?
It's been done before.
Yeah, it's something that just really irritates me that they have the technology. We have the technology to do so much better than what we're seeing. And I haven't seen any actual images. All I've seen is what's on the web. But I know that from what's on the web from other imaging systems from the 60s.
I know. I mean, here we are. We were using Vidicon tubes back then. Now we have incredibly sensitive, high-resolution CCDs up there, supposedly. And we're getting garbage compared to what we ought to have, or what I think we ought to have with today's technology.
Well, they can also use. We're not even limited by CCDs. We can use film also. If you recall, the early satellites, the early Keyhole 1 through 4, I think it was called the Corona series. They dropped a film canister over Hawaii.
That's right.
And the Air Force played tag with the Soviets trying to snag these things out of the sky, and it
was a race to see who got it first, huh?
Right. Then we had submarines and surf. It was great. Anyway, but to stop that, what we did was we got some ultra high res cameras, and then we scanned those. Remember the old fax machine where you had the drum that would spin?
Of course.
Okay. Imagine, if you would, a laser and a high image photograph, and then the laser would be able to detect gray tones and then digitize that signal, and then you could get that digital signal back and reconstruct that back on Earth. That's what we're doing now. So we get ultra-high resolution that way.
All right, let me read this to you. Art, my own understanding of the optical photography which your guest is describing is old hat. Current technology involves a radar mapping method which can resolve the head of a pin in most weather conditions. If he is brave, perhaps he will discuss this subject, or perhaps these advancements came after his time. What can you tell us about that radar mapping? Of course, they're going to be doing that, I believe, on Mars as well.
Right. Radar mapping, the problem we have with radar mapping is it's sociologically incorrect. The only power, it takes a tremendous amount of energy. All the other sensors we're talking about are passive sensors. What they do is they detect reflections or emissions.
You are quite correct. A radar requires an emission and a return and a lot of power.
Right, and so we would have something like an orbiting Chernobyl, and not too many people like those. You can remember the static NASA got just with the Cassini probe.
Yeah, but these were what were made public. Now, I don't doubt for a second that there are all kinds of nuclear things in orbit or placed somewhere up there that we don't know about. Of course, they would say there's a treaty and we don't do that kind of thing, but I'm not sure I believe it.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt we have too many of them. I don't know of any that we haven't made public. And if I knew of any that I'd just say it was classified and I couldn't respond. I don't know of any.
So you really don't?
I really don't. The only radar one I know of is La Crosse, and that's a fairly new satellite. The Keyhole series, the new Keyhole 12s, they use side-looking radar as well, but they're they're awfully tight. They're maneuverable. They run out of fuel easy. They've only got about a 700-800 day life, they're fantastic with what they do, no question about it.
All right. Now, where is it that you two come together? In other words, here we have a man familiar with satellites, designed them, and we've got Daryl Sims, who was ex-CIA and investigates implants, that sort of thing. Where does the twain meet here?
Well, let me start, and then I'll toss it over to Daryl.
Okay.
I believe that we first got into the UFO detection business because of two reasons: military sabotage and abductions.
Oh, my.
If you remember back in the early days, and maybe still going on, and I'm not privy to all of that, and maybe Daryl is, the used to be a lot of UFO activity associated with sabotage. And, we had the Juno missile failure. We had B-29s that were routed around. We had all our space probes, early space probes crashed. We had green fireballs. We had nuclear warheads retargeted at Maelstrom 2 times.
I've heard that, yes.
We had an Atlas F ICBM launched in 1964 that was shot down by a UFO.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Don't just zip by that one.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't heard of that. We had an ICBM shot down by a UFO. You want to run that one by me?
Sure.
Some detail?
Dr. Robert Jacobs, I believe his name is, was running a camera system on a mountain in Big Sur, tracking the polar launches of Atlas missiles out of Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Okay.
It's the same camera, by the way, that tracks all the shuttle landings at Edwards Air Force Base. So it's the same system. In December, I'm not remembering the exact date, but December 1964, he was filming Atlas F launch. During the course of the filming, and he's just sets the camera's on automatic, he's not watching the film all the time, but
sure.
The Atlas blew up. Now, this was in the 60s, and if you recall, it was not a bit uncommon for our missiles to blow up in the 60s. It was almost a given for a while there, with the early ones always falling over. But anyway, he was called into Major Mansman's, Florence Mansman's office, and shown a film the film had taken. And on this film, he saw disc-shaped objects, flashing light beams directed at the Atlas, encircling the Atlas missile. The second or third time they circled the Atlas and fired the light beams at it, the Atlas disintegrated and exploded. When he was asked what happened, he said, "I think those are UFOs." And Mansman said, "No, we had a malfunction."
How clear was the footage?
Well, the distance from Big Sur to Vandenberg is substantially less than Big Sur to Edwards Air Force Base. And you've seen the pictures of Big Sur to Edwards with the shuttle landing. And you can get an idea how clear those pictures are. Cut the distance by about a third. Excellent resolution.
Now, at the termination of Project Blue Book, the Air Force said that not all of the things they investigated could be explained, but they ended it by suggesting that whatever UFOs are, they are not a threat to national security. Now, shutting ICBMs down, in the case of Russia initiating launch sequences, shooting down rockets in mid-flight, this strikes me as possibly in the realm of national security.
It is.
Daryl, you want to handle that one?
Absolutely. In 1952, case of UFOs over the Capitol, a case that's in my book that I'm currently writing, I found the pilots that actually were involved in, sent up by the United States.
Now, when you say the Capitol, Daryl, you mean as in Washington, D.C.?
In 1952, yes. The UFOs were spotted over the Capitol, and a series of these UFOs. We had several pilots go up in Lockheed F-94B Starfire and to intercept 6 unidentified UFO objects. They were tracked on radar. They were also seen by commercial pilots, as well as, of course, the pilots themselves. And I've recently found the pilots, and they've told their story. Long story short about that is simply this. After the 2 pilots did their job, then they landed at Langley Air Force Base before it was the CIA headquarters, and I have their flight logs to verify the story.